and will be available to review within the next week. So all please make sure that your microphones are muted and that you utilize the chat for all questions as they will be addressed throughout the presentation and during closeout during Q&A. And let me know when you're ready to share the screen and we can go ahead and get started. We're good, everybody? Right, you can go on to the next slide. All right, my name is Desiree Williams. I go by she, her, hers. If we have not already met, I am the program administrator for Region 2, and I'm going to pass it along to Region 1, Mr. Will.
Hey everyone, I am Will Kerner. I serve as the program administrator for what we refer to as Region 1. Yes, that includes all my Northern Virginia folks that are on the call. So I will go ahead and pass it off to Sarah.
Hey, thank you, Will and Desiree. I am Sarah Foote. I'm the Region 3 program admin. I see some of you Region 3 folks on the call. Thank you so much. Hey, Laura Beth. Thank you for joining us today. I'm really glad to see such a big group, and I know there's going to be a lot of energy. So thanks for joining. I'm going to pass it off to my colleague, Ray.
Thank you, Sarah, and thank you, Desiree and Will. Most of y'all have probably already met me, but I am the newest housing program administrator. My name is Ray Caballero Obijero, and my pronouns are he, him, and they, them. I cover Region 4, so City of Portsmouth, Hampton Roads area, Virginia Beach, Eastern Shore, South Side, and the Northern Neck. And it is great to be here with y'all, and thank you so much for tuning in.
Thank you, everyone, for the introduction. For those of you who are new here, DHCD's mission is committed to creating safe, affordable, and prosperous communities to live, work, and do business in. Our unit's goal is to ensure homelessness is rare, brief, and one time, and we administer the continuum of state and federally funded homelessness services programs to address housing and stabilization services for individuals, families at risk of experiencing homelessness in the Commonwealth. Today's agenda will cover how to set up projects in CAMS, reviewing and uploading documents, submitting budgets and revisions, submitting remittances, common errors, and then close out with a Q&A. Again, please feel free to utilize the chat for all questions and hold them to the end of the presentation. All right, so starting with managing project roles. After you log into CAMS, this is going to be the first screen that you see. Oops, it looks like someone is off mute. If everyone could please mute, it'd be greatly appreciated. Thank you. All right, again, after logging in, this will be the first page that you see. You will select Manage in the top left-hand corner, and that will drop down, which will include your user profile, organization information, such as where you're located, if you need to edit those things, such as the centralized location, your website information, and any phone numbers. The next tab is going to be staff information, and then project roles. It is important to note that the organization head and profile managers are the only roles that have access to add and remove staff to their project roles. In that staff button, can you go back a slide? Sorry, right? Okay, so it is important to note that our organization staff and head or profile managers, they will add, edit, or review any new staff into that staff role, and then assigning projects is how we will see them into each project detail. You can go ahead and move into the next slide. So managing profile roles. After you have entered your employee into the system, you will select the project that you're working on, and then you will add that person's name and then assign them to a role such as the financial analyst, the project manager, or the organizational head. Upon reviewing that, you will be able to see who is already assigned to that role, which you can see at the top where it says the last name, first name, CAMS profile manager, and the project role, as well as the delete button. If you have an employee that is no longer with the organization, you would delete them there, or if they are moving into a different role, you would also delete to edit. And then you would go into add users to the project, select that person's name, and then the project role as to what they would be working as. Go to the next slide. Every user is assigned a primary role when they're added to the organization staff list. Primary roles determine the user's access to organization pages and project tabs in CAMS. Access to the project tabs of a specific project can be altered by assigning a project role. Typically, the profile manager and organizational head is not assigned a project role because they already have the highest level in CAMS. Project roles are optional. They provide or restrict access to the project tabs of a specific project. The user's primary role determines their access to any other projects associated with that organization's profile for which they are not assigned a specific project role. All users can manage their user profile and password, access project forms, templates from the downloads page, and search programs. Additional permissions vary based on the user's primary role and project role if assigned. Next slide. Finalizing the project creation. When you go into the project, under this tab, you will automatically see the profile manager's information. You just wanted to make sure that all of their information is correct, such as their name, contact information, and then you go to the next slide. I'm sorry, I just went a little bit too fast. You're gonna make sure all of the information is correct, and then you're gonna make sure where you're actually located is also entered into this screen. So with town and city, and all organizations must be within Virginia. So if you do have any additional pop-up sites, the centralized location must be in Virginia. And then you're gonna save at the bottom and confirm that all of the information is correct. And then I'm passing it over to my colleague, Ray.
All right. Thank you so much, Desiree. I really appreciate you leading us into the adventure of CAMS. So I am going to go over contracts in CAMS. So as you can see here, once your project is finalized in CAMS, as a PA, we would then upload the contract document signed by DHCD. So for new projects, this would be the grant agreement. If it is an existing project, the contract document could also be a grant amendment. Let's say if you're moving funds around or you have additional award money coming in. So here, please find your project in CAMS and print the contract document for your agency director's signature. So once your agency's director has reviewed and signed the contract agreement, you can then upload that signed contract into CAMS. Once the contract is in, now we can go ahead and approve the project budget. So let's say the contract agreement is in, it's signed by both parties, both by DHCD and the grantee. You're now able to go to the project budget tab. And once that project budget's approved, you can enter in your grant award amounts. And this is an exciting part, right? This is a lot of the result of a lot of your hard work and culmination of applying for these funds and getting it. You know, typically grantees enter in their own budgets into the project page in CAMS, but as PAs, we can assist if you are low on capacity. For VHSP, the budget entered must match the most recent year 1 or year 2 funding request from your COC or LPG, as well as the most recent signed or an executed grant agreement. So here you can see in this project budget tab, that's what we're clicking. On the next slide, this box right here is where you're going to enter the grant award in the total request box. So the total grant award goes right there. And there is a note because one common thing that gets budgets denied or denied is that all of the drop-down items will not have been filled out. So we want to make sure that when you enter in your budget, you see this small add button right next to the line item there. You want to click that. So click that and select line item. And then once you select that add button, you'll see a drop-down menu, and you can go ahead and click the line item and then be sure to enter in the award amount based on your most recent request. So here, this slide is just encouraging you to remember to enter in grant awards into your subcategories. So make sure you go click on each one. And when I say click on each one, I do mean click on each one. So even if you are not awarded grant funds for, let's say, HMIS, you would still click that drop-down button and enter in zeros. Budgets will be denied if each line item has not been dropped down. So it's important that you want to thoroughly check and make sure that the awards you're entering for your subcategories are correct and that you are not leaving any fields blank. So here, as you can see from the image, they have entered everything in. And once the budget line item detail has been entered, you can go ahead and click Save here. And then just remember to click Request Budget Revision. Because if you just click Save, it does not automatically, kick off that Request Budget Revision button. This is not an exhaustive list of, how or why projects will be denied in CAMS, but just a short list of common reasons. Typically, I mostly see because the contract document is not signed by the grantee or by DHCD. So you just want to make sure that you have both those signatures on there. You want to make sure that the project budget matches your most recent grant award or grant amendment contract, and make sure that the subcategory awards are filled out and that you have the correct grant year. Those are, at first glance, it might seem like small things, but it is, those details that are really important to us. And now that you have your contract in, now that you have your budget in, I will now pass it off to Will, who is going to go over, I'm sure, everyone's favorite part of CAMS, and that is the remittances. So thank you all so much, and I won't make a pun for Will's name, but I'm just going to pass it off to them.
Thanks, Ray. So getting into which is probably the most time exhaustive part of operating your CAMS project, which is remittances. So remittances are just requests for reimbursement that is submitted to us in your CAMS project. And these reimbursements are based on the date the payment is made by the grantee for the costs you've incurred. So we typically encourage folks to submit remittances monthly. So if you're submitting remittance for the month of January, you are including the payment dates that you have made for your incurred expenses that fall within that month of January. And I'll get into this a little bit later on the remittance form when we review that portion of it. Next slide. Okay, submitting remittances in CAMS. When you go into your CAMS project, I'm not sure if everyone can see this. I tried to make it as big as possible without taking up the entire slide, but there should be a remittance tab on your project, and that's going to be, I believe, right next to your budget tab. So if you just look right over there and like to the left of reports, that's where you're going to manage your remittances. So you just, to submit a remittance, go to that tab, and you can go to the next slide, Ray. And then there's going to be a little box in the corner that the arrow is pointing to that says enter new remittance. Once you click on that tab, you'll begin the process of creating and submitting a new remittance to us for review. All right, and here's going to be kind of like what you see when you submit that kind of request, drawing down the funds in that remittance. Yeah, so it shows, here it shows zeros for the amount requested because this is done with an account that really didn't have a remittance in it. But typically in that first column where it says DHCD request, that's where you're going to see the individual amounts that you're requesting for each spending category. And then at the bottom below that, you'll see the choose file button, and that's where you're going to load the backup document, which is going to be the actual remittance form itself. And for that backup remittance form, we requested that be submitted in PDF form, so not an Excel spreadsheet. And if you have any trouble converting to those, please let your program administrator know and they can help you out with that. And for those, we do accept electronic signature, as well as if you want to write a wet signature, scan and upload it, you can do it that way as well. And then you will, as similar with the budget, you can press save, but you really need to hit the submit remittance request in order for that to be sent to us for review. Okay, so once you get all that in, I went in and pulled a remittance where funds were actually requested to draw down, so that I can compare this to the remittance form that's going to be on the next slide. So yes, in that column right there that says DHCD request, we can see that this remittance was requesting $11,470.69 in prevention, and you can also see federal rapid rehousing amount, HMIS, and administration. It gives you the total amount there. The further right-hand column is going to be the total amount that is being paid out through the grant. And then I believe the second to right column, available funds, is what is available in each category after this remittance payment. Okay, so here is a copy of the remittance form that was submitted for that specific request. So you can see that in this table where it has it, the amounts per funding category, that those amounts line up exactly. And that's really what we need to see. Because if not, that's going to be something that we have to send back and you'll have to resubmit. What's, the amount drawn down in the request needs to match the cover sheet on the remittance form exactly. And at the top section is where you'll put in your organization name, the grant number, and the reimbursement period. And the reimbursement period you can see is for like the month of September. So when we get into the later pages of the remittance and you're listing out each individual expense, we're going to want to see payment dates within that reimbursement period. So the 1st through the 30th of September. If you do run into a situation where you want to include an expense that should have been included on a previous month's remittance, we can review that as well. But just reach out to your program administrator and let them know that that is something that's on there and why, like what that expense is and why it needed to be included on this one, so that we can just know that while reviewing it. And then it will have a section for the date submitted, as well as the person who is authorizing the report. And then at the very bottom, the section for a signature. Okay, so here's just an overview of like a few little things and common errors that we see within remittances. Remittances must be submitted for reimbursement the month following the actual expense. So you're going to submit remittances in the month of October for the expenses you incurred for the month of September. And once you submit a remittance, please allow 30 days for us to review and make payment for a correct remittance. For folks that receive rapid rehousing funds, most of you receive both federal and state rapid rehousing funds under your VHSP program. Federal rapid rehousing funds will have to be expended before state rapid rehousing funds are. I believe the deadline for fully expending all federal rapid rehousing funds is the end of March, while state rapid rehousing goes through the end of June. So we just make sure we need to target federal funds to be spent first. The one exception to that is services related to veteran rapid rehousing. That is only allowable under state. So if you have those expenses, then you can bill those to state rapid rehousing before fully spending down federal. So some common errors that we see in remittance, number one is just missing information. We know it's a lot to detail each individual expense. So some, we'll see either check numbers for a couple expenses are missing, dates those payments are made, client ID numbers, if it was, for rental assistance, utility assistance, rent arrears, things like that, or staff positions for staff payroll. Oftentimes the supporting document doesn't match the CAMS remittance, and that's what I was talking about earlier when the cover page needed to match what was being requested in CAMS. That's another thing we see frequently, so just double check that before submitting a remittance, because it's just going to take us, a little while to have that sent back and then corrected and resubmitted. And that is all I have to present on remittances, and I will pass it to Sarah for the Q&A.
Thank you, Will. I know that was a lot of information that we tried to distill in a pretty short amount of time. Looking around at this list, I'm delighted to see we have some new faces, and we've got some folks who have been doing remittances for quite a while. So hopefully this was clarifying for those of you who are already somewhat familiar with CAMS. But if you're brand new, sometimes it can be overwhelming to look at all these different pieces and know which way to go first. So with that being said, we're hoping to offer some clarification at this point. If you've got a burning question regarding budgets, grant agreements or grant amendments, organizational profiles, or remittances, please go ahead and ask them now, and we will do our best to answer you. You can just take yourself off mute to ask, because I can't see any hands or anything. Okay,
I have a question, Sarah.
Yes, Katie, actually give me 1 second.
Okay.
Lakeisha dropped one in the chat right as soon as I said that, but I will get to you next.
Okay.
Are there plans to redesign the remittance voucher? The current process is very overwhelming. Okay. In the agency's GL. Okay. I'm not aware that we're looking to redesign any of the remittance forms, although we will need to update them for the upcoming grant cycle. That's something that we can definitely explore. And if you find ways that you feel would get the same information across in a way that makes you have to recreate less, please let us know. We are open to discussing and making this process more streamlined. We're still going to need all the information. So I'm not sure how much we can simplify, but we're definitely open to ideas and discussion there. Oh, the accounting system. I see. Yeah, let's put a pin in that one for just a second, because we're not against, making some amendments to the forms, but I'm not aware of any changes that we have been trying to make to them. So we'll see if I can get you some more information on that, Lakeisha. And I hope I'm saying your name right. Katie, what were you going to ask?
So, I've been sending you my incessant CAMS questions. I'm sorry for that, but so I've been trying to look at some VHSP funding reallocation, or moving funding around so that we can spend it in the line items where we need it. But every time I go in and try to make those changes and then save them, my request budget revision button continues to stay gray and doesn't allow me to submit anything.
Yeah, that's super weird. And I know that we touched base on it before. Honestly, that sounds like it might be a CAMS help desk situation.
Okay. So if I'm moving funding to another category, do I use it? I use the add button and make the change, and then
It depends on whether you're moving between categories and subcategories, Katie.
Okay.
So if you're moving between categories, sometimes depending on, whether you're moving rapid rehousing or anything like that, you're going to need a budget revision and a grant amendment in order to go ahead and make those changes. If you're just trying to switch around funds between subcategories under the same category, you shouldn't have to go through that whole process. And it
Okay.
should just let you re-enter the funds into the exact line items, but in the amended amounts.
Okay, so that's not what's working for me. I'm still saying gray. So I guess, do I need to send a message somewhere?
Sarah, can I pop in real quick? It actually sounds like, Katie, you probably have the wrong user role.
I did look at that. I sat and read the whole CAMS user module, and I played around with all my user roles, and based on the little chart, my user role is correct and I have full access.
That is so strange. Okay, yeah, send over a chat or an email to the help desk. It's just help desk at CAMS help desk, I think
it's CAMS help, actually.
There you go. Thank you, Sarah. At
Yeah.
virginia.gov. And we can figure that. We can also pop into your project and see what might be going on.
Okay.
But yeah, Sarah's right. In order to move any funds across categories, you do need to submit a budget revision, and it even if it doesn't adjust the total amount of the project.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
You are so welcome. And that's a really good question that we probably should have included the CAMS help email address in the body of the presentation, but no worries. I dropped it for you here in the chat. So everybody feel free to snag that as you are able. I got a question from Lexi. How do I upload our organization's audit documents? I'm a project manager in CAMS and don't see a way to upload it. That is a great question. I believe that's under your reports and documents tab. Ray is nodding. Okay, so that should be, it should give you a slot in there to upload and submit your audit. What can you tell me what kind of trouble you're running into there?
I just don't see a way to upload it. I'm in Manage Documents and I don't see it. It actually says it must be uploaded from the Manage Audits.
Oh, perfect. Kendall just dropped the audit directions for how to upload those.
Yeah, just so everyone knows, there is a really incredible CAMS user guide that our oh my goodness, pausing on our staff person's name that does all of this.
Lauren,
thank you.
Kunkel. Yeah.
Thank you, Sarah. Lauren just revised this this resource I just dropped in the chat. The CAMS user guide is now up to date and looks exactly like you'll see it in CAMS. So to go to the audits, it's not done an individual projects page, it's done at the organization level. So on your manage, if you go to your main screen, you'll see that gear all the way on the left-hand side that says manage, and you'll hit that and go down to audits. From there, you'll just upload, choose file, enter your audit reporting period, and then click save, and it gets submitted over to our finance team for review.
So when I go to the Manage Audits page, I don't see something that says choose file, and I'll look through the user guide. Maybe I'm just missing it, but do I need to have a certain project role to do that?
You do, yes. Yeah, project roles pretty much dictate everything in CAMS about what you're allowed to do.
Okay. So I'll look at that and change it. Thank you.
Yeah, it should be probably the, you should have either a profile manager, organization head, or a finance staff user role, I believe.
Okay. Okay, great. Thank you.
Yeah, so just in case any of y'all missed that, Kendall also was kind enough to drop the CAMS user guide, the most up-to-date version, which apparently Katie Furnison has read cover to cover. Good on you. That's in the chat now if you want to go ahead and save that for your reference whenever you're coming up against a funky CAMS situation. Referring back to that guide is something that I have found helpful in the past. So hopefully you'll find it helpful as well. Does anyone else have any questions for the team?
It looks like there's a question from Lakeisha.
Let's see. Oh, follow up. There, I see it right in front of me. Yep. Are grantees allowed to use an internal report with all the necessary information versus having to rekey that information? Unfortunately, we do need to have it listed in the reimbursement, the remittance format, because those include the drop downs that you are able to file things for in terms of subcategories for each category. So if you take a look at your VHSP oh my gosh, I'm losing all my words. Sorry guys. Your VHSP remittance form, it will have certain drop downs available to you in Excel that you're able to then submit only within those boundaries. I have seen sometimes creative usage of Excel to try to make a remittance form, but no, we're going to need it to be just in that format.
I do want to add in just a little bit of background about why we use this remittance form, because we hear you. It is, if you already have a system that's reporting all of this out, it is troublesome to just transpose that data onto another spreadsheet. This is a process that's been approved by HUD for our reimbursement-based grants. However, I would encourage everyone, this is not an input session, so we can't make, or we're not, opening this to make these significant changes right now. But if this is continuing to be an issue for grantee staffing and capacity, to please bring it to our input sessions. We host those in the fall, and we'd really love your feedback on this process, because that's where we really get to open it up and say, what are some barriers that we can reduce for our grantees? We usually host those, the biggest input sessions in the odd years, so odd year fall, but now that we're virtual, we've been hosting them annually. So please look out for that invitation. We'll typically host maybe 4 sessions, and we'll open up to allow for all of this grantee input and anything that we're not thinking of. I think it's also good for our team. We'll take this note that we've had this discussion here and that we're hearing from you all that this is an issue, so we can also bring it up in the input sessions.
This is Juanita with 4 kids, and I have a question. I actually have 2.
All right, go ahead, Juanita.
Okay, so when you said that the reimbursements are based on the date paid by the grantee, so does that mean that if we should have a payroll that crosses over a grant period, we should submit it under the period at which the employee is paid, not matter when their time was that they worked?
So that is kind of a 2-parter question. So I'm going to try to attack both parts, and you let me know if I've missed anything. There's a lot of times, like, your payroll doesn't line up exactly with month to month, and if you're reimbursing monthly, you're going to see maybe like January 26th through February 8th as like a payroll period, and your remittance is for February, right? We're getting this remittance in March. We're looking at our February expenses, and 1/26 to 2/8 is just an example of one payroll cycle. We only need to know for those benefits that for those remittances, that there were no costs that were paid out in January that were then duplicated again in February. So if it's not exactly on the first of the month, that's totally fine. If you just drop us a note in CAMS anytime that happens, just to let us know, you don't have to go back into the previous remittance and make sure that that January time was already paid out, then that's not going to be an issue. It only becomes trickier when you're addressing 2 different grant years. And I believe what our guidance would be is that we are only able to reimburse based on the grant cycle that we are currently in. So if we want to back all the way up to June of last year, I saw a couple of remittances come through where the pay periods were like June 27th to July 11th. And I told the grantees, hey, we're only able to to pay you back for things incurred July 1st onward. So that June 27, 28, 29, 30, that's not going to count for your current grant cycle. And so we asked the grantees in question to do a prorated salary reimbursement for those particular pay periods. Now, if you want to split it up so that you're only remitting, at the very end in June for 4 days out of a pay period, and you have the internal processes to do so, that might save you a little bit of heartache. Otherwise, we're going to ask for a prorated salary reimbursement when it crosses into that new grant cycle or grant year. Does that answer your question? Did I hit it?
He was asking specifically about year end. So yes.
Okay.
Your second
Perfect.
part, you answered it. Okay. And then my other question is, and I recently experienced this with Ray, and so I just want to be sure that I understand it. When we are needing a budget revision within the same category, but just between subcategories. So in other words, if I need to move between two line items for rapid rehousing, do I need to do a budget revision or not?
If it's and check me if I'm incorrect on this, team, but if it's within one category and you're not moving it to another category, you're just switching between the subcategory line items, you do not need a budget revision. If you are moving, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Do I make the change on my budget, or do I let the line item go negative?
You let it go negative.
Yeah.
Yeah, it goes negative. It does not matter in CAMS. As long as there's overall funding in that category, you'll be able to pay out remittances for whatever eligible subcategory it is that you're billing to. I would say the only thing to note here is that this is why so many budgets get denied at the beginning of a grant year, is that we want to make sure that you're opening up all of those subcategories for exactly this case where say you think that all the funding is going to be billed to rapid rehousing rent assistance, but mid-year you decide actually we've got some rent arrears that we need to pay for. It requires a budget revision if that subcategory is not already opened in CAMS. So that's why the start of the year is a little bit more confusing and stressful for grantees, just open up all of those budget subcategories. But overall, yes, as long as there's funding in the overall category, you can go negative in any of the subcategories.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Kendall. And that kind of gets at what Ray was presenting about with budget construction. If you go ahead and drop down all of your subcategory lines for each category of funding, then you will be able to move those funds around and have any of them go negative, and that will be okay, so long as there's still money in that category type. But like Kendall was saying, if you didn't initially drop all of them down, you don't have that flexibility, and you'd have to do a budget revision in order to add a line item.
Sarah, I have a question.
All right, Terry, go for it.
When you were talking about the prorated salaries or wages, I do prorate mine, but I still list the payroll period as it actually is. Do I need to enter that as 7/1 to whatever?
Instead
of entering the actual payroll period?
What, Terry, that's a great question. You can continue. I would say you can continue to put the actual pay period in there, but make a note in the, before you submit it, make a note in the remittance section that you just have only included prorated salary amounts between 7/1 and 7/8 for the pay period that included June. So you're basically not including any June expenses in that remittance.
It hasn't been an issue because my first paycheck for the year, for the grant year, is always less what I'm requesting than it is for the next full July. So I've never had an issue because they can see it's not for the full amount on the previous week.
Yeah, I would just say the documentation piece would probably be helpful, but yeah, it was good to double check.
Okay.
Anybody else have any questions at this time? So you're saying if I quizzed you right now, you would have all the answers and you know how to do everything in CAMS. I'm just kidding. Yeah, if we don't have any more if we don't have any more questions right now about any of the material that we just covered, then we won't take up too much more time in your day. Please feel free to email us after the fact, reach out to any of the program admins, but probably more directly to your own program admin because they'll be the most familiar with your projects. And feel free to ask away. If you need assistance with something structurally in CAMS, please go ahead and follow up with the CAMS help desk and take this opportunity to download the CAMS portal, both of which are in the chat. Catherine, yeah, we're going to try to get that presentation link out to you guys of this recorded training later this week. As soon as the Google link is available to send out, we will make sure to send that out. And it will actually be a little YouTube link by then because we're putting it up on our DHCD YouTube channel. If you want to be in the know, you can subscribe to the DHCD YouTube channel. Learn everything that's going on at DHCD. All the cool kids are doing it. Yes. Director of programs. I don't know you, but yes, you're correct. All the cool kids are doing it. Soren, okay. Okay, y'all. Well, I think that probably wraps it then. Thank you for joining. We're really glad that you got something out of this presentation. And like I said before, we are here and able and happy to answer any of your questions and work through all of these CAMS bumps in the road together. We believe in you. We look forward to your remittances. Get those remittances in. And everybody, oh, no worries, Betty. Thanks for joining. And everybody have a fantastic Wednesday if I don't see you later.